Have you ever looked at your paycheck, seen that big chunk taken out for taxes, and then you read a headline about some billionaire paying next to nothing? It feels kind of like a magic trick, doesn't it? Like there's a whole other rule book you just weren't given. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that.
Because this is the question, right? This is the one that gets everyone talking. And believe me, it's not just a feeling you have. In a lot of cases, it's totally real. But the answer isn't what you might think. It's not always about breaking the law. It's about playing an entirely different game.
You know, the best way I've heard it described is like this. Most of us are out here playing checkers. The ultra-wealthy? They're playing three-dimensional chess. It's not that they're just playing the same game with more pieces. They're literally on a different board with different rules.
And this right here, this is the core of it. Most of us are in what you could call the salary game. You work a job, you get a paycheck, and that income gets taxed at a pretty high rate. Simple. But the wealthy, they're playing the asset game. They own things, stocks, real estate, companies that go up in value. And when they cash in on that value, it's called a capital gain. And here's the kicker. Capital gains are taxed at a much lower rate than your salary. That's the first and biggest move in the whole playbook.
So how do they play this game so well? Well, they use the rules to their advantage. And specifically, they use the loopholes written right into the tax code. And I've got to stress this. We're not talking about illegal stuff here. This is all about strategically using the law exactly as it's written.
So, the biggest loophole is the one we just talked about. It's all about how you earn your money. Just by making most of their money from investments instead of a salary, they've already chopped their potential tax bill way down before they even do anything else.
Okay, next up is the art of the write-off, the deduction. The whole strategy is to turn what looks like a personal expense into a totally legitimate business expense. This lowers their taxable income, which means there's less money for the government to even tax. So how does this actually work?
Let's imagine a really nice luxury vacation. For you and me, every penny for the flights, the hotel, the fancy dinners, that all comes out of our pocket after taxes have already been paid. It's a personal treat, right?
But for someone who owns a business, that exact same trip can get a makeover. All you need to do is schedule 1 or 2 meetings with a client. Maybe it's over dinner, maybe it's on the golf course. Suddenly, at least on paper, that vacation has been reclassified. It's now a business trip.
And boom, there's the result. A big chunk of the costs, the flights, the hotel, the meals, can now be deducted from their income. This brings their total taxable income down, and they pay less tax. And you see this everywhere. A luxury car becomes a company car, part of a mansion becomes a home office. It's a game changer. All right, now this is a serious power move. Let's say you're super wealthy. You own $1 billion in stock, and you need, say, $50 million for whatever you want. Now, if you sell $50 million worth of stock, you have to pay capital gains tax on the profit. So you don't. Instead, you walk into a bank and get a loan for $50 million using your stock portfolio as collateral. And here is the genius part. A loan is not income. It's not taxed. So you get millions of dollars in cash to live on, completely tax-free. They get to enjoy the value of their wealth without ever having to sell it and pay taxes on it. It's wild.
So, everything we've talked about so far happens inside one country's tax system. But the game gets much, much bigger. The next level of strategy is deciding where on the planet your money is going to live. And that brings us to the world of offshore tax havens.
So why do you always hear about money in the Cayman Islands or Switzerland? Well, this slide shows you exactly why. These places have built their entire economies around having super low or even zero taxes. They also have incredibly strict privacy laws, making it tough to figure out who owns what, and they have very friendly banking rules. By setting up companies or accounts here, you can legally park your money where it'll be taxed the least.
Now, we have to make a really important distinction here. Everything we've been talking about so far is called tax avoidance. It's using the legal system as it exists, the loopholes, the offshore accounts, to strategically lower your tax bill. It is, by definition, legal.
Tax evasion, on the other hand, that's a crime. That's when you're illegally hiding money or flat out lying to the government about what you earned. The wealthy and their armies of accountants are experts in avoidance, not evasion. They're not breaking the rules, they're just using the rules that are there. Which brings us to the final, and maybe the most powerful set of strategies. Because if playing the asset game is like playing chess, well then owning a business is like unlocking all the secret cheat codes. Just look at this comparison. Instead of taking a massive, high-tax salary, a business owner might pay themselves a pretty small one. Then, they take the rest of their money in other ways, like dividends from the company's profits, or bonuses, or shares in the company itself. And guess what? All of those are taxed at a much lower rate than a straight-up salary.
And then you have this thing called depreciation. And this is where it gets kind of magical. So a business buys an asset, let's say a building. Now, in the real world, the value of that building is probably going up every year. But for tax purposes, the law lets the business say that its value is going down. This loss on paper lowers the company's taxable profits, which saves them a ton of money, even while their asset is actually becoming more valuable. It's a neat trick.
And on a huge global scale, you have something called profit shifting. It's a pretty simple idea, really. You make sure your company's profits are officially booked in a country with low taxes, like Ireland. And at the same time, you make sure your company's expenses are booked in a country with high taxes, like the US or Germany. The result? You pay the absolute minimum in taxes around the world.
Okay, so we've gone through all of this. What's the big takeaway here? We've seen how the wealthy use the tax code, all perfectly legally, to their massive advantage.
It pretty much boils down to these three key things. First, using those legal loopholes, like making money from capital gains and borrowing against your assets. Second, moving money around the globe through offshore accounts. And third, using all the powerful tricks that come with owning a business, like depreciation.
And that really brings us to this quote, which kind of sums up one whole side of the argument. It's not about cheating. It's about having a deep, deep understanding of a really complex system and using every single rule to your advantage.
Which leaves us with this final, really important question to think about. Are the wealthy just playing the game that exists smarter than the rest of us? Or is the game itself, the rules, the loopholes, the whole system, the actual problem? Does the game itself need a whole new set of rules?